Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be evaluating the Washington Commanders 2022 season and why I think it was one of the worst case scenarios for the Commanders. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. It takes 1 second, it's free, go ahead and do it. Also hit that like button and that notification bell. And I'm sorry to start the offseason off with a negative video. Don't worry, there will be a bunch of positive videos, but I just want to, do a little bit of an evaluation on the season, just talk about how it went, and let's get started. So, the Commanders finished the season off 8-1, middle of the pack again. 3 straight years with just, a mediocre record. 7-9 the first year, and it was, they made the playoffs, which is great, but their draft pick ended up being lower than this because of, they made the playoffs last year, 7 wins, got the 11th pick, and this year 8-1 and will have the 16th pick in the NFL draft. Just mediocrity. And in the NFL, the worst place to be is where the Commanders have been the last 3 years. Anywhere from like 7 to 8 wins. Like, that's literally the worst possible spot to be because you don't make the playoffs and you get a terrible pick. The Washington Commanders got this, I guess third to last pick before you make the playoffs. And, if they would have lost yesterday, it would have only been a 2-pick difference. So that's not really a big deal. But if you're going to not make the playoffs, miss it by a lot. Not, with the Commanders where they're in it until the second to last week of the season or the last week of the season. It just frustrates me. And now they still don't have the answer to the quarterback. Maybe it is Sam Howell. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the video. But you put yourself in a position where it's going to be tough to get a quarterback. You're at the 16th pick, so if you want to get one of the top 2, even top 3 guys, you're going to have to trade up into the top 8 minimum, and that's going to take a lot to do. And of course, you traded for Carson Wentz, and that you gave up a 3rd round last year, and now it's going to be a 3rd round this year. So it's going to be even harder to trade up for a quarterback. So the Commanders not only they had a mediocre record, they didn't find their answer to the quarterback position, and it's going to be hard for them to find it this offseason because they don't have a ton of draft capital and they have a middle of the road 1st round pick, 16th overall. And talking about Sam Howell, it would have been better if, and I know it's tough because they were in playoff contention, but they didn't really get a true evaluation of Sam Howell. They played him 1 game. They played him 1 game, and even in that 1 game, he only had 19 pass attempts. He looked good. I thought overall he had a solid game, but they didn't give him enough reps to really, passing attempts to really get a sense of what he, how good he is. And also 1 game, even if you would have thrown 40 times, that gives you no true evaluation. You need more than a season, and they only gave him a game. So it would have been nice to have a few more games this year where we saw him. I know it's a little bit unrealistic because they were still in playoff contention, but let's say they would have lost a couple of those close games early on in the year, maybe against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was a tough game. They could have lost that game. The Bears game, they could have definitely lost that game. And then maybe the Falcons game. And there was other games they definitely could have won. But I'm just saying if they would have lost those games and got out of playoff contention earlier, then they could have started Sam Howell the rest of the way, and that could have been a little bit better. But I know that's a little unrealistic. But just to get a better sense of what Sam Howell is going into the offseason, because right now you really don't know. You think he could be definitely could be a piece, but again, only saw him for 1 game, and he played well in that game. But yeah, and the Commanders, you look at the NFC East, last place in the NFC East. But to be fair, they had over, I guess exactly a 500 record. 8-1 is exactly a 500 record, and in other divisions they would have been 3rd in here, 3rd I guess in the NFC North. It wasn't terrible. Their record wasn't terrible, but in the NFC East, where all the teams are playing pretty well, they're 4th. And I think the NFC East is going to be good for the next few years. The Eagles, they're definitely not going anywhere anytime soon. They have Jalen Hurts, and they've got a lot of great players under contract. But yes, they do have some older guys that will be leaving after this year, but they have a very good draft capital and will be in position to contend for the next 5+ years. Cowboys, they're still going to be in a solid spot. They've got good pieces, even though Dak isn't elite, and his contract is, very expensive. Think they'll be fine, and the Giants, they're trending in the right direction. So it's going to be tough for the Commanders to do anything anytime soon, and it could be another scenario next year where all 4 teams have the chance to make the playoffs. I really think so. But yeah, the Commanders this year, they did some good things. Don't get me wrong. And I'm talking about how this was the worst case scenario, and I still think it is because they didn't make the playoffs and they got one of the worst possible draft picks, and they didn't get any closer to finding their franchise quarterback. They didn't evaluate Sam Howell properly. But, let's talk about some other things. Defensively, I think they did a really good job. I think their ranks were 3rd overall in defense, and I'm going to make a whole video on that. Props to Jack Del Rio. Early on, I was really, really frustrated. Thought that, not that they should fire him now, but I was like, okay, if this continues, he's got to be fired by the end of the year, and that definitely didn't continue. Cameron Curl came back. They made some adjustments, got rid of William Jackson III, and the defense is a bright spot for the team. And one thing I want to say, this defense is not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, Daron Payne is the only guy that potentially could leave from this, from contributors from this year, and I don't think he's going to leave because I think at worst we franchise tag him and then maybe trade him, but I think really, in reality, we're going to try to extend him, and if we can't, we'll franchise tag him and hold on to him for another year and see what we can do there. He did a really good job, and Cole Holcomb's also a free agent, but Cole Holcomb didn't really contribute to this, season. I mean, when he was playing, the defense was still not where it, is now. They were struggling, and I don't think that's because of Cole Holcomb, but they just weren't playing their best football, and so I think they would have been better with him there, definitely over David Mayo and Khalid Hudson, who did have a good game, but still over David Mayo and John Bostic. They would have been better, but he's not. If they lose him, it isn't the end of the world. They can replace him with any linebacker out there. I think linebacker is still a position of need that they need to go after this offseason, whether that's even if they bring back Cole Holcomb, they need to bring in another veteran that is at the minimum can come in there and play all right. Definitely someone better than John Bostic. AJ Klein wouldn't be mad about that at all. Bring someone in that can help. And then corner, I think that's a position you could definitely upgrade, but it's not a necessity. Benjamin St-Juste has been playing well. I think it is a necessity to upgrade the depth at cornerback because the starters, McCain is all right, I guess. Kendall Fuller has his moments. I think overall is pretty solid. And then Benjamin St-Juste is good, but he's not always healthy. So you got to bring in someone, whether it's draft a guy in the 2nd, 3rd round, or even the 1st round if you really like a guy, or sign a veteran that has played in the league for a while that can compete for a starting spot with McCain, or just have him as the next guy up. Danny Johnson also impressed for sure this year. Played really, really well down the stretch. So got to give props to him. And also going to the offense regressed this year. They did. I mean, they added, their offensive weapons got better, but the offense as a whole regressed in my opinion. Points wise, they did. I think yards was around the same. And Scott Turner, I think he needs to be gone, and I hope he is. And with, lately what the players have been saying behind the scenes and also publicly, I think it's trending in the direction of him being gone. I mean, they added offensive weapons. They got Brian Robinson, Jahan Dotson, and they got, even though they had some injuries, they were healthier this year than last year, and they regressed, and I think that's on Scott Turner. But I like the weapons they have. Jahan Dotson is a stud. I think Terry McLaurin's a stud, of course, and Curtis Samuel is good. And then the running backs, I feel good about those. You just got to fix the offensive line and the tight end position. And I know that's a lot, of course, in quarterback. But I don't think that's really going to be fixed anytime soon, the quarterback position. But offensive line and tight end, I think, quick fixes, bringing in, all right free agent at the tight end position and moving on from Logan Thomas if you want to save some cap. That'll be fine. And that can upgrade the position from a C minus right now to a C plus B minus, and that's good enough. And who knows, if Cole Turner improves, maybe that can upgrade the position. O-line, bring in a couple free agents and then draft a guy, whether it's 1st round, draft a tackle, or maybe a guard in the 3rd. Or I guess they don't have a 3rd round pick, but if they actually they will have a 3rd round pick because the Brandon Sheriff contract, so maybe a guard there, but. offense, I mean, it really comes down to the quarterback, guys, and that's with a lot of these teams. We'll see what Howell looks like. I think there's a realistic scenario where they bring back, obviously Howell's going to be back, but they bring back Heineke and they have those two guys compete. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, well, we shouldn't bring back Heineke, should have Howell as the guy. And I understand that, but first off, I think if Heineke was the start of this whole year, we're probably in the playoffs. And second off, like, if Sam Howell is truly the guy, he should be able to beat out Taylor Heineke as the starting quarterback. He just should be. And if you have Howell as a starter, I like Heineke as a backup. I think he's a good role model for Sam Howell, and I think that just works really well. Have him as a backup. If Howell gets hurt, you have Heineke, who's a perfect backup, knows the system, players love him, and it works out perfectly. So, and I don't think there'll be any issue with those two. I think they'll be fine, and I think the players like Howell as well. So, I just, as long as you don't bring back Carson Wentz, I think you'll be fine. So I know that was all over the place, but I was just kind of evaluating the season, talking about the offense, the defense, and how the season played out. Also talking about the coaches. I think if I were in charge of things, Rivera wouldn't be back, Turner wouldn't be back, and Jack Del Rio would be. And I could see a scenario where I think Rivera's going to stay, but it would be weird if Rivera stepped down and then maybe you have Jack Del Rio as a head coach. Would not mind that at all. And then general managers and stuff, that's not going to change until Rivera's gone because he is the guy in charge. But I'm not a huge fan of the guys in charge, Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney. I don't have it's not like they're terrible, but I would like someone younger, a little bit more innovative, especially in terms of the contracts. But that also could be because Dan Snyder's liquid, so they can't be really creative. But I know this is all over the place. We'll have more structured videos in the next week. If you guys have any suggestions, go ahead and put them down in the chat. I'm excited. It's sad that I'm excited for excited for the off season and we can't actually be excited for games, but I am excited for this time of the year. Always am, making all the predictions and stuff, what I think they should do. So I'm excited. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.